Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And while you're at it, if you are a Facebook user, check out the Titans of Podcasts and Wrestling fan page. It is a great group of people putting together some of the best news, rumors, and links that you could possibly ask for if you are a diehard wrestling fan. Check that out today. If you have not signed up, go for it and sign up as soon as you possibly can. And if you are also on Facebook and you want to play a wrestling game, but you're sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 every year for the latest episode of the latest game, like the 2K games, play Wrestler Unstoppable for free on Facebook. Create your own customized wrestler, work through storylines, sign contracts, join companies, do everything you could possibly do in the real world of professional wrestling, all encased in one game. Join Wrestler Unstoppable for free today, only on Facebook. While you're at it, shoot over to patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast if you want to become a Patreon member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family. We'd love to have you. We love reaching out and getting as much input and connection with our fans as we can, and we always would welcome anybody to the Patreon family. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. I'm going to say right off the bat, I apologize. Tonight is taking place instead of tomorrow night's normal going live at 9:05 at Saturday night, because tomorrow night my son gets the super cool opportunity to hang out with some Philadelphia Soul Arena football players, and Dad's got to take them. So we're going to get the live episode going tonight. If you're tuning in on Saturday night, sorry I had to record this one the night earlier, but that does not change a thing as far as me wanting you guys to contribute to the show. By all means, if you have questions, comments, concerns, things you want me to discuss, cover, or whatever, go to the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160 and give me your information. Whatever it is that you want me to talk about, I will tell you right now. I got great questions this week from certain people. I've had a really good time reading through the questions. I'm going to address some of those tonight, and as well as go through everything you could possibly want to talk about that's happened this week in the world of professional wrestling. And we've got a new round of our fantasy booking tournament, the one that we've got going on right now, the best Intercontinental Champions of all time. They are all in there. You guys have broke it down. We're down to the Sweet 16. We're down to 16 former Intercontinental Champions, former or current, I'm just saying. And we will see who they are paired with in the Sweet 16 round. We are launching the fan voting for that right this minute. So if you want to get a jump on the voting, go to frowrestling.com and click on the vote link. If you want to jump over all that and go right to the voting page, it's frowrestling.com/fan vote, and you can cast your vote for this round, the Sweet 16 round of the best Intercontinental Champion of all time fantasy booking tournament. I want to get started with comments, because I always feel like when I do these episodes that I try to incorporate as much from you guys, the listeners, as I possibly can. And you know what I decided? I could sprinkle them throughout the show, which is what I've tried to do over the different episodes, but I don't want to miss anybody. Okay, and there are times when I get more comments than I can fit into the show. Now tonight, that's not as much the case. I have two comments in particular I really want to focus on, and I want to make sure I do those right away. But if you have questions and comments, by all means, please send them in. I love hearing from you guys. You guys are awesome. And the comments I want to get to tonight are from someone who's becoming one of my absolute favorite listeners, because they give me such great questions and commentary. And I love when they call into that sound off line. They give me some great things to think about, and I really appreciate it. And that goes out to our special listener right now, Harold from St. Louis. Harold, thank you so much for giving me so much communication this week. I loved hearing from you, and you had some great information. I almost feel like this episode of Going Live is kind of like an episode for Harold and myself, because he gave me so much good information this week, and I had a great time reading through that. So I feel like he really helped guide this show. So special shout out to my buddy Harold in St. Louis. Thank you for tuning in and being such a loyal listener. I appreciate every time you tune in. His questions this week I really found thought-provoking, and there was two of them in particular I want to talk about. One of them was he made reference to all the part-timers that WWE has right now, the Brock Lesnars, the John Cenas, and I'm sorry, John Cena's a part-timer as much as any other part-timer, and he also included in the list Randy Orton, and I get it, because Randy Orton, if you think about it, with the exception of that short World Championship run, really he's disappeared from movies, injuries, and other things throughout the years, so he really has been off TV for a good chunk of time over the last year or two. So I get it. And he asked, if WWE would take the stance of when these guys who are the part-timers, when their contracts are done, don't renew them anymore. Only give us talents who are going to sign on to be a full-time contributor to the roster so that we always have a legit world champion walking out every week on television. And I completely get what he's saying. See, it's frustrating for me as a diehard wrestling fan my whole life to know that someone like Brock Lesnar, who, if anybody knows anything about me as far as a wrestling fan, I am a diehard Brock Lesnar fanatic. I love Brock Lesnar. If you go to Fro Wrestling right now, frowrestling.com, you'll see on that little photo gallery I have of the different wrestlers I've hung out with and stuff, one of the pictures of me and Brock Lesnar in 2003, before he had the dagger tattoo in the middle of the chest. And I got to hang out with him at the Philadelphia International Airport, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. He was there, Kurt Angle was there. I got to watch he and Kurt Angle spend some special time talking to the Villanova amateur wrestling team, and they brought him in and let him sit at their table, and they were so welcoming to them, and they were ribbing him a little bit, but then they were giving them ideas on how to wrestle and perform better and how to eat properly and things like that. And it was just such a cool moment. And from that second on, I liked them before that, but from that night on, I adored Brock Lesnar as a wrestling fan. And when he left and went to UFC, I thought, man, if this guy does well there, it just proves he's more than just the cartoonish make-believe wrestler. He's the legit tough guy, and he did that. And I have nothing but respect for Brock Lesnar. I love Brock to death. However, to Harold's point, we have all these part-timers that show up, and one of the biggest complaints has always been that the part-timers take away from the full-timers being able to take the spotlight matches. At WrestleMania, why are we going to be talking about Brock versus Roman Reigns? Brock's almost never there. He shouldn't be in the main event. Goldberg, who shows up for 3 matches, gets one of the main event spots at WrestleMania. Why? He's almost never there. Now, here's the thing. The actual question that Harold asked was, in my opinion, in my professionally fanatic opinion, do I think that WWE would take that stance where they eliminate those part-timers, don't give them a new contract, and focus their energies basically on the full-time wrestlers? I would love for them to do that. I really would, because I think we would get what we're dying for. A consistent product, someone carrying that belt to the ring every week. Back when it was like the 1980s, you may not have seen Hulk Hogan in the ring a whole lot, but you saw him every week on an interview. He was either talking to Mean Gene Okerlund, or he was in the Brother Love show, or he was in the Snake Pit, or Piper's Pit, or something like that, the Flower Shop. He was always on somebody's talk show. He always was visual on the shows. Now, that doesn't mean he was in the ring, but we got to see the world champion. Brock Lesnar will come out for a week and he'll disappear for a month. And that's a problem. So I would love for them to eliminate this part-time nonsense and get down to developing new talents and giving us consistent week-to-week champions who show up, perform, and make things interesting. That's what I would like. Now, here's the thing. Here's what's going to happen. It won't happen, and here's why. Last year, Goldberg, when he was made the playable character in 2K17, the video game, Vince McMahon had no idea that the fans were going to react the way they did when he walked out for the first time on Raw. When he saw that reaction, when he saw the feedback from the people who are the biggest wrestling fans, Vince is a smart guy and was like, hey, there's money here. Goldberg got the match he got, and he got the spot that he got because he draws money. Brock Lesnar, he gets paid $5 to $6 million this year because he draws money. They get their biggest buy rates when Brock is on the card, and when John Cena's on the card, and when Randy Orton is on the card. As a matter of fact, I know people don't want to hear this, but the number one draw in WWE, when they're on the bulletin board, is Brock Lesnar. Number 2 is John Cena. Number 3 is Roman Reigns, who gets a lot of negative flack from the fans. I'll give Roman Reigns this. At least he shows up every week and gives it his all. So they won't do it because, monetarily speaking, as a publicly traded company, you want to have maximized earning potential, and that means bringing in special attractions that bring in an audience that would not otherwise watch your show. So let me break it down like this. I don't know Harold personally, but I love his questions. He's really a thoughtful listener, and he comes up with some great stuff. The reason Harold's asking this is because people like myself and Harold and others, we probably all have the network. We're going to watch every pay-per-view. We're going to watch every weekly television show. We'll watch Table for Three, Talking Smack, Raw Talk. We'll watch everything we can. We have Stone Cold podcast episodes, Edge and Christian show, Holy Foley. Like, we could probably sit in front of the WWE network and watch no other show on television and just watch the network 24 hours a day and still never get bored. Because that's what diehard fans are. Here's the issue. When it comes to WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, and any other major pay-per-view they want to push in a given year, they're looking for something that they don't get any other day of the week. They're looking for the person who doesn't tune in every month for the pay-per-view. They're looking for the person who would not normally buy WrestleMania. And here's the thing. If you were a fan of WCW during the Monday Night Wars, and then after the wars you're like, man, this sucks, WWE got crappy, they went PG, you're probably not tuning in to wrestling every week anymore. However, if you were a diehard WCW fan and you hear, wait a minute, what's that? Goldberg is coming back? You just made somebody turn on the television to watch Raw and pull out $10 a month to grab the WWE network because they have that revitalized interest in Bill Goldberg. So the reason it'll never change is because WWE will always try to get to people who aren't already subscribed, and that comes from generating excitement from nostalgia acts, people of the past who had such a huge following at one point, or intriguing storylines. And you guys and I all know that they don't do the storyline thing well. So that leaves them with only one option, and that's bringing in talents that can draw better than their normal roster guys. It's kind of like the opposite of TNA when TNA was TNA Impact and Jeff Jarrett was first in charge. He would cultivate talents. He would have a pay-per-view every week for $10 on your pay-per-view or satellite provider. And they didn't have pay-per-views like the $40, $50, $60 a month deals, but they had $10 a week. And people would tune in because $10 isn't too much to invest to see if somebody's a good talent. And then people got used to seeing AJ Styles. And they got used to seeing people like Ron Killings and Ken Shamrock when he was first in NWA TNA. Jeff Jarrett, Rhino, Raven, people like that who showed up in TNA, and then you had like the Bobby Roodes, the Eric Youngs, the James Storm, you had America's Most Wanted tag team, the Naturals, you had all these really great homegrown, low exposure talents, and you just showcase the snot out of them. You got to see AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Low Key in a triple threat that just blew your mind. And that was a different approach than what WWE does. Impact Wrestling originally was building their backbone on giving fans something they couldn't find anywhere else. And that was new faces and exciting matches. Great wrestling action. WWE has never cared about that. WWE has cared about numbers. So you and I tune into the network, we don't count anymore. They got to bring somebody else in who's not normally watching, and unfortunately that means bringing in the part-timers because they're the ones who are going to pop the ratings more than what they normally get. Raw is drawing in just over 3 million people a week, but I guarantee you, if they announced that next week on Raw, The Undertaker was going to show up, next week they'll get 3.5 to 4 million people. Because everybody wants to see The Undertaker one more time. If you found out next week on Raw, Hulk Hogan was going to be there and have a face-off with Stone Cold Steve Austin, everybody would tune in. Old fans, new fans, mainstream media would all tune in to see what's going to happen when Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold go face-to-face. If everybody tuned in and found out something like Jake the Snake Roberts was going to be there, you'd probably get a little bit of a bump in the ratings because people love what feels good and feels, comforting and natural, and you don't get a lot of that week to week in WWE. You get repetitive nonsense, same matches over and over again, and that's why people are tuning out. So to answer the question fully, I would love to see that system, and Harold, I think that would be a great way. If we were Impact Wrestling, if that's what we were talking about, I think they would do that every day of the week, twice on Sunday, because I think that's their business model. New talents, and don't worry about these part-time guys, even if you don't know who they are. That's what they do. The other question that Harold posed that was really thought-provoking and I had to look up was in reference to WWE's obligation to the USA Network for a 3-hour Raw program as opposed to a 2-hour Raw program. As it turns out, WWE's contract, they do the 3-hour Raw in order, and basically his question was, if they were to change Raw to 2 hours, could they bring back something like Sunday Night Heat Velocity, Saturday Night's Main Event, things of those nature. And the reality is, yeah, they could bring back those shows, but they would be separate contracts. The time allotment on Monday night is its own deal. Each program that they run is their own deal. They don't give them a block of hours and then they differentiate it based on how they scatter it throughout the week. So if they wanted to bring back a Sunday night program, he actually said about putting a Sunday night program on the network, which I think would be a great idea. Have a regular Sunday night live program of Sunday Night Heat or something of that nature. That would actually be a good thing. But they do Superstars. They say they do WWE Superstars, which is supposed to be like that, but you always get 2 matches and it's always garbage. But his point he was emphasizing is you'd actually get to see some of these guys, the Aiden Englishes of the world, and you could give them some exposure while being able to have a shorter program on Monday nights and really be able to tell a story and get rid of all the blah blah and talking and all the nonsense. And I could not agree with Harold more. We absolutely would be better off with a 2-hour Raw because they wouldn't have time for all the filler nonsense. And, and Harold pointed that out. He talked about how they have so much filler. And it's so true. You turn on WWE program. I don't know if anybody's done this recently, but turn on Monday Night Raw this week and watch. Now, I don't know what they're going to do on Raw this week, but I guarantee you the show's going to kick off with an interview. And that interview, when you combine the opening credits, the introduction of the announcers, whoever comes out to talk, whoever interrupts the person who's talking, whatever stipulation is added, and then they set up a match for later in the evening, and then they go to commercial break, and then they come back from commercial break, and the same person who was in the opening segment is probably in the back now and somebody's questioning their decision, and then finally you'll get to your first match. And by the time you get to your first match, it's probably 23 to 24 minutes into the show. So when they say they have a 3-hour Raw, that's 3 hours is how much, and 3 hours plus, because they always run over 3 hours. But that time, that 3 hours is not wrestling. A good chunk of that is just talking and setting up storylines. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that professional wrestling needs storylines, and in order to make them work, you need to talk about them. But the truth is, one of the lost beauty and art form type things about professional wrestling, and I've talked about this on other podcast episodes, is that one of the beautiful things they had in the 80s and 90s was pointless matches. Like tomorrow, if or Monday night, if we turn on Raw and they have Elias Sampson out there going against, Bob Jones from, Nescopec, Pennsylvania, there's not going to be an issue with watching Elias Sampson obliterate that guy. And nobody's going to be mad for him obliterating that guy, because that's what you would expect Elias Sampson to do, is beat up some local jobber. And that's what we don't see anymore. We see all these mid-card matches. Once in a while, we see a championship match. More often than not, we get the top 4 to 6 people who are competing for a championship to be in a main event that is the same main event you had 2 weeks prior. And therein lies the problem. We need to get to where the booking is giving us matches that are of superb quality while giving us engaging storytelling, that the storytelling happens in the ring, not in front of a microphone all the time. Going to 2 hours would give us some of that freedom. So I did notice a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember if I think we put it on one of the episodes, where they were talking about potentially bringing back Saturday Night's Main Event for 2 or 3 times a year. I think that would be a great idea, but then it's going to feel like a pay-per-view, almost like WCW when they would do Clash of the Champions. You would look at the card and say, dang, this might as well be a pay-per-view card. And they never made enough money off it, so they stopped doing Clash of Champions. It's kind of that feel. That's part of why they don't do Saturday Night's Main Event. Now, I remember them. I used to love them, too. I loved, I remember one where there was a battle royal and Tugboat threw Hulk Hogan over the top, and they were supposed to be best friends, and all that kind of, I have various memories. I remember, one of the best matches I ever saw with the Rockers was against the Brainbusters on a Saturday Night Main Event. There's so many different great matches I've seen in my life on that show, but the show doesn't really make WWE a lot of money. So you got to do one of two things. Either you got to find a way to make a show that makes them money, or you got to put a show on the network that people want to see, so more people buy the network. I don't see either happening, because I'll tell you right now, people want to see the United Kingdom tournament, people. They want to see that. They want to see the guys who are going to be competing in the United Kingdom division on the program. That's something that multiple fans have talked about. I've gotten messages about, and I don't understand why they haven't made that happen yet. By the way, if I hate going this long without reiterating the number. If you want to call in with questions or comments, I'm recording this live tonight. It is Friday night. It will go up tonight, but this is in lieu of our Going Live at 9:05 segment for Saturday night, because I will not be in town. I will be at a Philadelphia Soul event my son will be participating in. But if you want to send in questions or comments, by all means, 267-642-1160. Call the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line and give us your information. I would love to get your comments into the shows whenever possible. And one more time, I just want to say thank you to Harold from St. Louis for sending us so many great questions this week. Thank you, Harold. Feel free to send as many more as you'd like. I'll always try to get to those every episode if I can. I want to get to the news of the day because there is quite a bit of things to talk about, and I don't want to keep you guys up all night. But here's the thing. Some of the stuff going on this week blows my mind, like the Woken Hardys. It looks like you're not going to see a deal made for the Broken Hardy trademark anytime soon. So the Hardys have found a way to circumvent that. They are now going to be the Woken Hardys. They've woken up from this whatever it is that they've been going through, and now they've started to use the mannerisms and the behavior. And here's what I have to say to Ed Nordholm and Anthem. You can't think that you're going to win any lawsuit trying to fight the Woken Hardys. This is like when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash went to WCW. They still act like Diesel and Razor Ramon, but no one ever said Diesel or Razor Ramon. They said Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. No one ever is going to say the Broken Hardys. They're going to say the Woken Hardys. And because of that, you're not going to get them on a trademark infringement. You're not going to get them on an intellectual property infringement. So you should have negotiated the deal if you're Anthem and taken your 15 to 20 grand, because now you're not going to get anything. The Hardys will never let you release a DVD with the likeness of Maxwell or Senior. You're not going to see any of those videos released on any video compilation you have without getting a lawsuit, because you have no intellectual property releases from those two people to be able to use their likeness on your programming. So you just cost yourself a good chunk of change. Stupid business. I don't understand Impact Wrestling business model right now at all. And I don't necessarily let that fall in the hands of Jeff Jarrett. I think that's more Ed Nordholm than anybody. But it looks like we are headed towards the Woken Hardys, and I think that is a welcome change. It's something we've needed for quite a while. It's very frustrating that it has taken all this to make that happen, but so be it. I hope that other talents, if anybody hasn't noticed, I've put out an episode back in, I want to say April, May, where I talked about the depth of the talent pool on GFW programming or Impact Wrestling programming. And there was. But half the names that I listed on that episode are gone. Magnus, gone. Matt Morgan, gone. The Cody Rhodes, gone. Brandy left this week. We'll talk about that, I suppose. They're losing talents left and right. Gunner is gone. So what has to happen is they got to stop the bleeding somewhere and start keeping some talents and building them in a way that they want to be built. I spoke to Robbie E. at a Worldwide Wrestling Alliance show only 2 weeks ago, and Impact Wrestling looks stupid. So I don't even know where to go from there, when it comes to Impact Wrestling. I don't know what they're thinking. But the Woken Hardys are coming to WWE programming. Fans have been waiting for the Broken characters. Now they'll get a spin-off, essentially, of the Broken characters. And I hope the fans of WWE are as welcoming to this character as any other that they would have, because Matt and Jeff have clearly put a lot of time and energy into these characters, and they should be relatively entertaining. I want to get you guys a update on the G1 Climax. So 13 days worth of competition have taken place. And right now, there are several talents who are mathematically eliminated from the competition. Now, they will continue to compete because it's a round robin and you have to get a match with each person in your block. I don't know if anybody understands how the G1 works, but there are multiple talents in two blocks, Block A and Block B. Each wrestler in each block faces every other wrestler in the block in round-robin fashion, scoring 2 points for every win and 1 point for a draw, no points for a loss. So at the end of the competition, whoever has the highest point total in Block A will go against the person with the highest point total in Block B in a final match to determine the winner of the G1 Climax. That's how the program works. Now, in the event of a tie, The person who wins the head-to-head match between the two talents, tied for points, will get the tiebreaker, and they will go on to compete in the final match. So as of right now, the leading performers in Block A, tied with 10 points apiece, are Tetsuya Naito and Hiroshi Tanahashi. So they both have 10 points. After them, you have Bad Luck Fale, Hiroki Goto, Kota Ibushi, Tomohiro Ishii, and Zack Sabre Jr., all with 8. So theoretically, mathematically, any of those people could still get to 10 points. But I think we can all see where they're going with Block A. Naito and Tanahashi have feuded over the Intercontinental Championship all year. They're going to have the match the last night of Block A's competition. The winner of that match, because that'll be the tiebreaker, will win Block A. I project that Tetsuya Naito will win Block A. That is my prediction. In Block B, right now, the winner of Block B so far with 12 points and being undefeated is Kazuchika Okada, the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. In second place right now with 10 points is Kenny Omega. Now, after those two, Evil, Sonata, and Minoru Suzuki all have 8 points. So in theory, they could catch Okada, but Okada has not lost a match yet. I don't see him losing 2 or 3 in a row. So I don't see any way for those 3 to catch Okada. The interesting thing here is, despite the fact that Okada has 12 points and Omega has 10, when Omega and Okada, they will meet on the final night of the block round matches, and if Kenny Omega defeats Okada, and both wrestlers win the rest of their matches until that point, they will be tied at 12-12, and the tiebreaker will go to Kenny Omega because he would have beaten Okada head-to-head in their round-robin match. Now, I predict that that is exactly what they will do because Okada won the initial championship match at Wrestle Kingdom. Then there was a draw at their rematch, the 1-hour time limit draw, the 6.25 star match. So Okada won one and tied one. It's time for him to lose one, but they don't want to take the belt off of Okada. So Omega will defeat him in the G1 Climax. That'll be how they level the playing field. And then Okada will lose to Tetsuya Naito in the G1 Climax final match. That's my prediction. Kenny Omega defeats Okada the last night of singles competition and then loses to Tetsuya Naito and loses the G1 Climax. Naito will then go on to challenge Okada, and Tetsuya Naito will defeat Kazuchika Okada at Wrestle Kingdom for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. That's my fantasy booking prediction for the G1 Climax and the short follow afterwards Wrestle Kingdom main event, because that's to me, if I'm booking this, that's the only thing that makes sense. The only other thing I can theoretically see happening is Tanahashi coming out of Block 1 and Okada coming out of Block 2. The IWGP Intercontinental Champion Hiroshi Tanahashi facing the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Kazuchika Okada. Now, I don't know who you have win that match. Maybe you have Tanahashi so he could challenge Okada, champion versus champion, title for title at Wrestle Kingdom. Can you imagine? It's like a rematch of WrestleMania 6 with Hogan and the Warrior. Tanahashi versus Okada, champion versus champion, title for title. I would love to see that. They've had some classic matches, but I just don't think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see Omega and Naito in the final, Naito win, and then challenge and defeat Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. So, that is our recap of the current situation in the G1 Climax. I hope you guys are checking out the matches on YouTube, or if you have the opportunity to purchase the New Japan Network, it's the same as WWE Network. It's $10 a month. It's a great bit of programming. There's so many great matches on there. If not, check out YouTube. Find the matches on YouTube. There are so many. YouTube's great. Daily Motion's another place you can go. There's quite a few different places you can find the G1 Climax matches, usually the next day. So they just finished night 13 yesterday. By the time some of you listen to this podcast, night 14 will have taken place. I do not have those results yet. I apologize, but definitely a great tournament so far. I want to get to Smacking Talk. So a lot of people didn't even know about this, but Daniel Bryan and Renee Young kind of went rogue this past week, and they opened up a live feed on Tout. I don't know if you guys remember, a few years ago, WWE had made some big deal with Tout, which is a social networking video program. They put out on Tout Smacking Talk. After Talking Smack was canceled, Renee Young and Daniel Bryan, they have this Smacking Talk episode. They air it on Tout, and the funniest thing ever forever. They have their first guest is Chad Gable, and they reveal that Chad Gable is Daniel Bryan's illegitimate son, which was totally tongue-in-cheek awesome. It was very funny. It was obviously low-budget camera and all that stuff, but it was fun. It was exciting. You know what it was like? For those who have watched this, and if you haven't, I highly encourage you to do it, that Southpaw regional wrestling nonsense that WWE has on their network. If you haven't seen that, check it out. That's kind of the feel I got from it. It was like, it was obvious, it was staged to the point that it was ridiculous, but it was entertaining all at the same time. And the reason they did this is because Daniel Bryan and Renee Young are not stupid. They know that the fans love talking smack. It was the closest thing to reality wrestling interviewing that we had, and they're getting rid of it because Vince McMahon is completely out of touch with the wrestling fans. He doesn't understand. We don't want his cartoonish nonsense anymore. We want reality-based programming, and that's what Talking Smack and Raw Talk were, and he didn't like that. He wanted to have total control over what people say, and so he canceled a program that really was one of the best ones on the network. If I remember correctly, somebody said that it was the third highest rate. The week that they canceled it, it was the third highest viewed program on the network was Talking Smack. And the frustrating thing about that is that the number 1 and 2 were like table for 3, and after that was Talking Smack. And then you get rid of that because you want to feature something else, the 205 Live shows, which have not been garnering any interest. They don't rank in the top 20. But you want to cram that down people's throat instead of something people actually were tuning in to watch. You want to talk about bringing in fans and watching your program? Give them what they obviously want. They wanted Talking Smack. Bad decision, WWE. But going to move on from there. GFW and former WWE World Champion. It looks like Rey Mysterio is headed to Global Force Wrestling. He had negotiated with WWE. It looked like for a short period of time there, they were going to bring him in kind of as an ambassador to the Latino market. They were going to try to help out his son. If anybody didn't see this past week's episode of Lucha Underground, Rey's son was on the show. They do a thing where they were messing with him in the crowd. If you haven't seen it, check it out again on YouTube. Very cool moment. And we thought that maybe that would help his son develop his career, but it looks like WWE has soured on the thought of bringing Rey in because Rey is represented by Conan. And for whatever reason, Vince McMahon and all his wisdom, supposedly, about professional wrestling has not figured out. He can mend fences with people like Bret Hart and Goldberg and stuff like that and Brock Lesnar, but he can't mend a fence with Conan because way back in the 90s, for those of you who've been following wrestling that long, you'll love this one. Back in the 90s, Conan was in WWE with a mask on as a character known as Max Moon. And Max Moon would walk to the ring in this blue, funky, almost like a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger kind of outfit, and he would shoot flames out of this funky arm thing he wore, and he was super athletic and all that. And Conan decided that he did not want to stay in WWE, and instead he returned to Mexico so he could be a main eventer in AAA and CMLL, places like that. And instead, that really frustrated Vince McMahon. So all these years later, he is representing Rey Mysterio, and because of that, Vince McMahon doesn't want to deal with Conan because he harbors some ill will because he put so much money into Max Moon, and now he, all these years later, he's trying to negotiate with him. Absolutely ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. Now, I did hear that he apparently was backstage at a SmackDown taping or something recently and didn't go out of his way to try to mend the fences with Vince McMahon. Why should he? Why is it always up to the talent to go to Vince? I'm not trying to say that, Vince McMahon needs Conan by any stretch, but here's the truth. Conan doesn't need Vince McMahon either. He doesn't owe Vince anything. He didn't think his character was going to go anywhere. And let's face it, all the cartoonish characters Vince came out with in the early 90s didn't go anywhere. Adam Bomb. What did Adam Bomb ever do? Duke the Dumpster Drozy or T.L. Hopper or Repo Man. What did those people ever do that was meaningful? Instead, Conan goes to Mexico and becomes one of the greatest Mexican wrestlers in the history of Lucha Libre. I think he made the right decision. And Conan is pretty well to do as far as wrestling history because of making that decision. And, Vince to hold a grudge this far after, absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. But just saying. But the problem is it prevents Rey Mysterio from coming into WWE. And instead, it looks like he probably will be featured pretty heavily if he heads over to Impact Wrestling. So more power to Rey Mysterio. I just feel bad for his son. I think the Performance Center would have been a great thing for his kid. Big news coming out of Monday Night Raw is Bayley is injured. So Bayley is scheduled to take on Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam for the Women's Championship. She'll be having a final scan on Monday, but they're saying it's like 90% sure that Bayley is going to miss SummerSlam, and that on Monday night on Raw, we will see a number one contenders match for the Women's Championship between Sasha Banks and Nia Jax, which we anticipate Sasha Banks will win. Horrible booking, just my opinion. I understand you wanted Bayley to be in the match. I think that was a bad decision to begin with. Sasha Banks already had a program with Alexa Bliss. That's why that's a bad idea. People have not seen a legit feud with Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss, and I think people would love to see it. That 5-foot firecracker versus this giant Samoan bulldozer. Give it to the fans. It's what they want. They don't want to see... Don't get me wrong, they want to see Sasha Banks, but they don't want to see the Women's Championship monopolized by 2 or 3 people again. You know, we had that last year. And I'm not saying the matches weren't great last year, but we want to see some variety. And this is a chance. Give Nia Jax the shot at SummerSlam. Now, they're not going to do it. I fully believe the reports. It'll be Sasha Banks. Bad idea. But I'm just saying what I would do. DJ Zema Ion in Impact Wrestling. For those who don't know, a few months back, he had a match in Mexico where he had a full rectal tear. Now, I know that sounds disgusting. It is. It's life-threatening. You can go toxic pretty quick after that kind of thing. It's a life-endangering injury. Well, he has been medically cleared to return to the ring. Congratulations go out, and nothing but we were given prayers for a speedy recovery to DJ Zema Ion when that happened, and we're thrilled to find out that he should be returning to the ring shortly. Long overdue. What an underrated guy. He's so good in the ring. I'm a huge fan. DJ Zema Ion, Robbie E., Jesse Goddard. I liked all 3 of them. And I love seeing any of them in the ring. So welcome back to the wrestling world, DJ Z. Paul Heyman and Samoa Joe. Topics about them this week. So Paul Heyman apparently is in the back in WWE, really throwing around Samoa Joe's name as the man who should take the Universal Championship. Now, here's the thing. Brock Lesnar is advertised for the pay-per-view after SummerSlam and for 2 Raw appearances. That tells me that based on Paul Heyman's claim that they were going to quit the company if Brock Lesnar didn't retain his championship at SummerSlam, tells me he's probably going to retain. However, apologies. Stranger things have happened. I would not be surprised to see Brock Lesnar lose at SummerSlam so that they could quit the company supposedly and then get on with this whole John Jones fight. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to retain at SummerSlam and then lose the championship at the follow-up pay-per-view, and that's where I think it should go to Samoa Joe. I actually agree with Paul Heyman here. Samoa Joe is look, I'm not trying to be mean here. He's not the oldest man in the world, but he's certainly by all means not the youngest talent on the roster either. Late 30s. It's time for Samoa Joe to get his world championship run, and this is a chance to do it in a convincible, you can make the fans buy that Joe would beat Brock. Even if there has to be some kind of schmaz ending, I'd take that. Have Paul Heyman turn on Brock and join Joe. That way you keep Heyman on TV and Brock can go do his UFC thing. But the word now is that Brock will retain and he will stay in WWE and fulfill his commitments through the Royal Rumble and at WrestleMania 34, and that the John Jones fight will not take place until either June or July of 2018. I'm fine with that too. And one of the big reasons is after the Mark Hunt fight where WWE negotiated for Brock to fight while under WWE contract, when it came out that he had been flagged for a banned substance, it caused a complete crap storm for WWE because he wasn't in the wellness program because he's a part-time talent and they don't have to test, and they kind of had to like muddle their words and they looked bad and they don't want to go through that again. So if he finishes up his commitments through WrestleMania and then does the UFC thing, if he fails a drug test, it's not on WWE's hands. He's not a WWE talent at that point. I think if Brock is on something this time, he should get a lifetime ban from UFC. And like I said earlier, I'm a huge Brock fan. But dude, seriously, stop, popping the pills, man. You're big enough as it is. Just keep busting your tail like you've always done, and we don't have to worry about these kinds of things. By the way, in case I haven't said it in a little while, if you want to shoot questions, comments, concerns, anything of the sort, tune into the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line 267-642-1160. Send us your questions, your comments, anything you want us to cover in the world of professional wrestling. We like to keep you guys involved. And while you're at it, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast to become a Patreon member of the Fro Podcast family. We'd love to have you. Let's talk about the NXT Tag Team Championship. It will be on the line at TakeOver, as Sanity will take on the Authors of Pain. I'm bringing this up. I don't usually talk a lot about the cards for the NXT shows, but I've been watching the Authors of Pain since they debuted, and I have not seen anybody who can give them a run for their money for the titles until now. I think Sanity would be a great team to put into the ring, have them win those titles, and then transition the Authors of Pain to the main roster. And the reason I say that is you've broken up so many teams lately on the main roster, both brands. Now, American Alpha obviously are split up. Enzo and Cass are split up. There are other teams that are on the verge potentially of splitting up. I think this would be a good time to bring the Authors of Pain in. Have them come in, probably I would say to SmackDown. And they would be a great fit for a team to take on the New Day and probably take those titles off. The New Day had such a long run with the Raw titles. They don't need a long run with the SmackDown ones too. Have the Authors of Pain come in and take those titles. But at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3, we'll see the Authors of Pain defend against Sanity. They've built that feud for the last several episodes. Should be a great physical match. Not clear yet if Eric Young will be a member of Sanity at that time. He's been taking some time off. His mother was in a bad way and passed away, and so he's dealing with some personal matters. Our thoughts and prayers out to the Young family. But should be an entertaining and exciting match just the same. The WWE United Kingdom stars. Now, we've talked about this before. There is no plan currently in the works to get the UK brand up and running, a weekly television show on the network. So there's word now that they may be moving in on NXT TakeOver and doing an angle there, having multiple, up to 6 of the different UK talents showing up at TakeOver. Now, at the same time, there's been a rumor this week about the Ring of Honor members who are now in NXT forming a new faction in NXT. Now, I don't know how you would do like a play on words with Ring of Honor, but I think they will do something like that. It looks like there'll be a faction who have all of former Ring of Honor talents. Can you not see how awesome it would be? Ready? Here comes my fantasy booking again. For the WWE UK champion to show up with 5 other members of the UK brand and have them take on the Ring of Honor, the former Ring of Honor talents. Get to see like Tyler Bate and Trent Seven in there with, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, Roderick Strong, whoever. I would like to see it. And what would be even cooler is if you put that match where they finally get in the ring and have a match at Survivor Series. Give exposure to the UK stars and the NXT roster all at the same time on one of your main roster pay-per-views. How cool would that be? That's something I wish would happen. Clearly not going to happen. Going to move on to something that has been driving me nuts all week. Enzo's future and his latest setback. So apparently he was in the backstage area talking about how much money he makes and then denigrating the wrestling business. How can you be this stupid if you're Enzo? You've already got backstage heat. You were kicked off a bus over in Europe when you were on the European tour because you don't know how to shut your mouth. You just run your mouth endlessly. His personality that you guys see on TV apparently is exactly what he's like in his personal life. He's loud, he's in your face, he's obnoxious, and pretty much everybody can't stand the guy. It's to the point now where it was reported today on E-Wrestling News that Enzo's not even allowed in the locker room to dress with the other wrestlers because nobody wants to be around the guy. That's pathetic. The rumor is, and the story of the week about Enzo is that Vince McMahon and the writers for Raw would like to write him off of Raw and move him either back to NXT or over to 205 Live. Now, we've talked at length here on the podcast about how I think Enzo would be great for 205 Live, and I do. I think he'd be a perfect fit. I think he would bring some interest to the matches that are currently going on for Neville. Neville doesn't have anybody worthwhile to go against. I think they're probably going to give the Cruiserweight Championship to Akira Tozawa at SummerSlam, but I don't want to see that. I really don't. What I really want to see is somebody who's more exciting, and that's Enzo. Put him in there, let him take the title. Now, they're not going to give him a championship if they have this much backstage heat on him, but I think that the fans would like to see that. I think it would be something new and fresh and exciting, and it would take this midget, Enzo, and get him away from Cass, who's 7 foot tall, and you can't teach that, and instead, you would be putting Enzo in a situation where he's with people much more his size, and he could really try to hone his skill. That's where it looks like they're trying to push him. Now, the other option being NXT, I actually don't think that would be a problem either. He's got a huge following from his NXT days. That audience, that whole feel and culture is a little bit different. So maybe that's a better place to put him. But he's lucky he has a job, because typically people who have this kind of backstage demeanor and have this much heat this early in their career don't make it very far. Someone has leaked the original plans for this past week's SmackDown Live Nakamura versus John Cena main event. Apparently things were supposed to go very differently. There was supposed to be a run-in by Baron Corbin trying to cost Nakamura the match and whatnot. And the word is that John Cena wanted to lose clean to Shinsuke Nakamura. He wanted to put over Shinsuke Nakamura. Absolute kudos to John Cena for being a legit man about the wrestling business. Thank you for bringing some legitimacy to the SmackDown brand. I love the way the show ended. I love that Cena came out, set up his match for SummerSlam, because it looks like that's what we're headed towards. John Cena will take on Baron Corbin at SummerSlam, and I actually expect Baron Corbin to win the match. And that'll be the way to write him off of SmackDown, and he will make a full-time move to Raw. That's the other rumor this week about John Cena. But the actual finish of this match was fantastic, except for dropping John Cena on his head. If anybody hasn't watched that scene in slow motion, that is some grisly stuff. I would not be surprised if in a couple days we find out John Cena's got like some kind of major neck problem. His chin was like planted in the middle of his stomach from being dropped on his head the way he was by Nakamura. I'm sure Nakamura obviously didn't mean for that to happen. He immediately took to Twitter and apologized. He was so upset, but man, John Cena's a lucky man today. Big updates. I can't tell you how cool I find this to be. Paige had a statement. Her and Alberto El Patron had a little interview on Busted Open Radio this week where she announced that she is ready to return to WWE and will be returning to WWE very shortly. She had one more physical that she has to pass, which she anticipates she will with flying colors, and Paige will be making her return to WWE. Take that with a grain of salt, because if you remember, the word was once she was medically cleared, WWE could release her. And so I don't know if they'll let her come back. I hope they do. They need her. The women's division on both brands is boring now. They took something that was so organic and so awesome, and they've kind of crapped on it for the last 5 months. So bringing Paige back would be a shot in the arm for whatever brand she goes to. I actually hope she goes to Raw, because I think she could do more for the Raw brand. See her in the ring taking on Alexa Bliss, or, getting in the ring with Nia Jax. On the other side, Alberto El Patron, he was asked about his return to Global Force Wrestling and whether he'll be at the weekend live events. He will not. They are keeping him suspended, which is bizarre. If the police have already investigated him and they've cleared him of any charges, he's done nothing wrong, why are you still keeping him suspended? It's ridiculous. What he has going on in his personal life with his girlfriend, fiance, whatever she is, that's his business. It's none of your business. He didn't break any laws. There are no charges filed against him. There technically haven't been any charges filed against her either. So get off his back. Put him back in the ring. Now, I'm not saying I like the guy. I think he's a chotch. But you have no reason to keep him out of television. Get him back on your shows. The people deserve to see the world champion at every house show there is, every live event. Get him back out there so people can see him. He hasn't earned any reason to not be on the shows. Jim Ross, on one of his podcasts this week, spoke about Ronda Rousey, and I found it to be fascinating. He said in terms of Ronda Rousey and WWE, it's an indefinite thing. It's going to happen at some point. It's a match made in heaven, I think he referenced it as. He thinks that she will have a WrestleMania moment. I think that would be a beautiful thing, and I also think it's just a matter of time until we see that. The issue I have is I don't know how you book her. I know she wants to face Charlotte. I think that match will happen, probably at Mania. I know that there was conversation about her and Stephanie McMahon and maybe having a mixed tag match with she and The Rock against Triple H and Stephanie a year or two ago. I would be in favor of any combination of anything that gets Ronda Rousey in a WWE ring. But the thing is, I don't want a one-off. Kind of going back to Harold's point earlier in the show, I don't want a part-timer. If Ronda Rousey's coming to WWE and she's done with mixed martial arts, then go to WWE. Ken Shamrock, as much as a lot of people don't like him, he was a great performer for a few years for WWE. Do that. Go in and tour the road, go up and down the road with the people, become a great wrestler. Obviously, other people have done it. Matt Riddle has made a career now as an independent professional wrestler. You're not even going to have to go to the independents. You'll go straight to the main roster. You'll be welcomed with open arms. WWE loves mixed martial artists. Just go there, do your thing. And the last thing I want to get to today on this episode, the Braun Strowman Karen Jarrett issue. I actually kind of had a humorous bit this week. People have keep speculating on what actually happened and what was said. Now it sounds like more of the people who were present are claiming that she really didn't introduce herself. It sounds like Braun didn't even know who she was, and she kept saying how her kid wanted an autograph. And I guess Braun was something like F your kid or something like that, or the hell with your kid or something of that nature, which is what set her off. There were early reports that he was on his hands and knees begging her not to tell Kurt Angle and all this other stuff. But the funniest thing coming out of this whole incident is that, first off, there was a phone call, a teleconference call with the GFW talents, and Karen Jarrett was on there, and she addressed this situation, downplayed it completely, made it sound like it was no big deal, which is what you would expect her to do, even though it's BS. What I find completely humorous, though, is this week it was reported, I saw this on all the sites, again, like I said, I could sit here all day, WrestleZone.com, eWrestling News, Wrestling Inc., F4W Online, PWI Online, you pick it, Sportskeeda, Bleacher Report. I tune into all of them. So I just gave my powwow shout out to all those websites. You all have the same news. I report the same news. I'm not plagiarizing anybody. It's everywhere. But what was broken this week was that since this went down with Braun and Karen Jarrett, because she used to be married to Kurt Angle, and apparently it was in reference to her son that she has with Kurt Angle, people in the locker room have been getting a rise out of Jason Jordan, picking on him, telling him that Karen Jarrett was trying to get an autograph from Braun Strowman for him. That is absolutely awesome. Ribs and wrestling are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together. I love it. Jason Jordan is getting exactly what he deserves for being in such an incredibly stupid angle like he's in right now with, no pun intended, Kurt Angle. But whatever. Actually, by the way, the rumor is this week is that the rumored match between Jason Jordan and The Miz at SummerSlam may actually be off. They may not be pushing that match as heavily as they initially were going to. We'll have to keep our eye on that. I think it would be a horrible thing to have him suplex The Miz into the Miztourage, and then not give him the match at SummerSlam. But the rumor is they want to hold that off until another pay-per-view in the near future and do something else with the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam. I think that's a terrible idea. Get the match going. If you're really going to push this kid, and if you're going to give him a main event run, or a mid-level run, I shouldn't say main event, do it. Just get it done. Why do you guys think you have to come up with these elaborate stories that never make sense anyways? You're not good at long-term booking. Give us the match. Let Jason Jordan win the Intercontinental Championship. Let The Miz move on to something more interesting, especially if you take the World Championship off of Brock. Then I could buy The Miz challenging any of the other competitors. Maybe not Braun Strowman, but let's say Roman Reigns wins the title. You can have The Miz beat Reigns, or at least challenge Reigns. You can have The Miz challenge Samoa Joe or Seth Rollins or somebody of that caliber. But I can't see The Miz challenging Brock or Braun for that matter. So I'd like to see The Miz be in the world title picture for a little while, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. So hopefully they make a switch of their game plan and get us going with something that makes a lot more sense to all of us. If you have not done so yet, please shoot over to patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast. Become a member. We want to keep bringing these episodes to you. It gets challenging at times, and we would love to have you guys help us bring this podcast to a bigger and brighter and more wonderful audience. I have such a great and loyal following. You guys are amazing. I just want to say, I was looking at the numbers this week, and I saw we have 319 subscribers on YouTube. By all means, if you have friends who are into the wrestling world, please spread the word, get them to subscribe. But to those 319, you guys are awesome. I love you guys to death. I really do. 7 new subscribers this week. Thank you to those 7. I hope you like what you're hearing. For all the 312 that were here before there, thank you for being such loyal followers. It means the world to me. Now, the people who I haven't thanked enough. I went into my Spreaker account, which is the program I use to host this podcast, and found out that there are 375 followers on Spreaker. Thank you to all my Spreaker followers. You guys are amazing, just as much as my YouTube followers. Awesome. I appreciate everyone who tunes into this podcast. You make this worthwhile to me. This is the one thing I do every week that makes me feel great about doing something for other people, and I am so thrilled to be able to bring any wrestling entertainment to my audience. You guys are just, I can't even describe. You know, I really can't. You guys are awesome. So thank you to everybody who does that. If you know people who would like this, please get them to subscribe. I would love to have every one of you be subscriptions on YouTube or Spreaker or both. I'm okay with that too. And as I said earlier in the podcast, this episode is going up tonight. It is in lieu of the Saturday night going live at 9:05 because I will not be in town. I'll be going to the Philadelphia Soul. Just because I always divulge too much personal information. The Soul are having a combine for young football players. My son is a young football player. Trying to get him to get out there. He's going to be working out with the Soul players and getting an autograph session afterwards. I will not be here, unfortunately. I'll be at that event. But I will be back next week for going live at 9:05. Oh my gosh! I almost forgot one of the most important things of the night. I'm glad I thought of it before I ended the episode. We didn't talk about the Intercontinental Championship Tournament. I'm going to throw that in there real quick because I don't believe in leaving you guys without delivering everything that I said that I was going to cover. You guys have done an amazing job. I can't tell you how awesome it is to look at the different matchups in this tournament that are still going on. So in this Sweet 16 round, I'm going to give you the rundown quickly of all the matches because they're phenomenal. I couldn't have asked for a better round. This is very cool. So, match number 1. I have never seen this match. Somebody told me it has happened, but I have never seen it. I won't believe it until I see it. Bret the Hitman Hart taking on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Oh my. Can you even imagine in their primes that match? Those two guys would have put on an absolute clinic. I wish I could have seen something like that. Next match, another one. Sadly didn't get to see, would have given anything to be able to see. You guys will appreciate it as soon as I say it. Daniel Bryan taking on the Rocket, Owen Hart. What an awesome technical masterpiece. You notice a theme here. 2 technically sound matches back to back. The next one. This has been a dream match on almost everybody's fantasy WrestleMania card throughout the last 20 years. The Macho Man, Randy Savage, taking on The Rock. The next match is one, again, I never saw. It's one that could have happened because of the timing, but didn't. The longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, the Honky Tonk Man, taking on the man who eliminated the man with the most championship wins. He eliminated Chris Jericho last round. So the Honky Tonk Man taking on Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. The next match is one that I guess you could say happened in a way, but not for the Intercontinental Championship. The crippler Chris Benoit taking on HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. The next one, I think, would have been one of the most horrible matches in the history of professional wrestling. But I'll set it up this way. Coming off a win over JBL, Diesel takes on, coming off of a win over Edge, the Ultimate Warrior. Diesel versus the Ultimate Warrior. The Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, moves on in the tournament to take on Kurt Angle. And the final match of the round, and for me, personally, just because I'm such a fan, Ravishing Rick Rude, the former Intercontinental Champion, at WrestleMania 5, defeating the Ultimate Warrior, taking on Kevin Owens. What a match. That for me in this round is my match. There's actually a lot of good ones in this round. I would love to see the Bret Hart Steamboat match. I'd love to see the Daniel Bryan Owen Hart match. I'd love to see the Savage Rock match. I'd actually like to see the Honky Tonk Man and Kurt Hennig. I feel like I've seen Benoit and Michaels. I couldn't care less about Diesel and the Warrior. Not because I don't like either one of them. I just don't think they would gel in the ring very good. And Kerry Von Erich, Kurt Angle, very cool match. It's just not something that piques my interest overwhelmingly. But Rick Rude, Kevin Owens, There's something about both of their attitudes. The way Rick Rude was always oozing that charisma, the way Kevin Owens just has that I just don't give a crap attitude. I love it. Would be a great match. So those are your matches in the Sweet 16. Your voting blocks are open. And actually, I shouldn't say that. There's one voting block this round. So go to frowrestling.com, click on the vote tab, go in, cast your votes. I can't wait to see what you guys do. I can't imagine who's going to get matched up in the next round. It should be awesome. Cast your votes. Voting will stay active until Wednesday of next week. And I will be back with another episode on Monday night. Actually, I apologize. It's about Monday night. It'll be on Tuesday night. And then we'll be back again next Saturday for... Actually, let me think about that for a minute. I think I might be busy that Saturday too. We'll figure that out coming up in our next episode, and I will let you guys know. But... either way, we will get you a live episode next week as well. Got to keep up with my live episodes. I love doing them for you guys. You guys are awesome. That is all the time I have for this episode. Check back with me on Tuesday night for whatever news and rumors are going on in the world of professional wrestling. We'll run down Raw and SmackDown and all that kind of fun stuff. Special thanks as always out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects used in the show. Today's podcast, as always, is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/games/sketchy people to pick up your copy today. Or you could just go to frowrestling.com and click the link in the middle of the page. And alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, or arcade game needs. Be sure to shoot over to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, high school, juniors and seniors, college students, or you're an adult who wants to look up a new career path. Frolife Educational Planning can do that for you. Colleges, universities, alternate career paths are our specialty. Frolife Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Frolife. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to tsjsports.com for the latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I will see you guys again in our next one. Take care. Have a great night.